Alrighty, well, this is what I'm making. I've toasted the bread. I've put a tomato on each piece, a slice of tomato. I've just put the Parmesan cheese, Parmesan cheese, I know, I just like to mispronounce things because I think it's funny. The Parmesan cheese, or as I say, Parmesan cheese, on top. And now I'm going to take the mozzarella cheese slices, which, yeah, see that? It's going to go right on top of the whole thing. Look at that. Isn't that nice? This is going to be breakfast. We eat at Camp Crazy, we do, damn it. We eat well, too. Just because we're hobos doesn't mean that we don't eat well, I'll tell you. Trailers for sale or rent. There we go. Hey. Oh my goodness. King of the road. Yeah. Here we go now. There they are, right there. Now, we got to put the tray. Where's the tray? Where did I put the tray? Ah. What did I do with the tray? I don't know what I did with the tray. Oh, you know what? It's inside the oven. That's where it is. It's inside the oven. It might still be hot, so I'll pull it out part way here. Here we go now. Oh, boy. This is going to make a bit of a mess of the oven, of the tray anyway. It is. Trailers for sale or rent. There we go. All right, now we'll put it all back in here. We'll close the door. All right, now. Whoop, here we go. Okay, toast, no. Bake, no. Broil. That's what I want, is broil. There we go. I had it on toast, now I got it on broil. 350 degrees sounds about right to me, I think. 350, sure. We'll turn it on. Ooh. Now we got to melt the cheese. Yes. This is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome, Rocky. Rocky's all excited, I can tell. Are you excited? Hey? You're excited, eh? It's funny. I was thinking today about what I said yesterday, about how sometimes I get a feeling about a thing, and if I don't listen to that feeling, it goes badly for me, but if I do listen to it, I reap the rewards. Pardon all that clattering and stuff. I run a noisy kitchen. Yeah, that's melting. You just let that go for a little bit. Anyway, get that out of Rocky's way. Hi, Rocky. Boop, 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 boop. Anyway, I'm going to tell you some stories again, some freaky stories of some things that happened to me. He's investigating. He said, what is that strange thing? Is that a threat to Camp Crazy? Should I be concerned about it? Maybe not, but I don't know. Hey, you, I have to look into it. And he will, too. He'll investigate, and he'll determine whether that thing should be here or not. It's called a pot holder, Rocky. Just to make your research a little easier, it's called a pot holder. Yeah. So you can look into it and see if that's a good thing to have around here or not. Eh? Anyway, yeah. Ooh, she's melting nicely. I like that. That's good. That's what I want to see. It's just broiling up nicely here. It's depleting my power bank at an alarming rate, but that's okay because I got a generator out there, so I can recharge it. Not a big deal when you're able to recharge your power bank. Anyway, I'll tell you some stories. Back in 2018, the van I was driving died on me. And I was working for an auctioneer at the time. And he had some, well, I'll just say interesting friends. And one of them was a fellow by the name of Donnie Hannaford. And Donnie Hannaford liked to buy and sell cars. So anyway, my boss told me, he said, you need to buy a vehicle. You should buy a vehicle from Donnie Hannaford. Donnie Hannaford is a salt-of-the-earth person. He's a living saint. Honest as the day is long, Donnie is. Now, I understand now to when my former boss would say that. That was code for a crook. But anyway, I still hadn't figured that out because I'm a little slow on the uptake at that time. Anyway, so I met Donnie Hannaford. And Donnie, ooh, look at that. That's looking good. I think we can shut it down. Anyway, Donnie, now we'll turn this back to bake because that's where I normally use it. And I don't want to forget and have it set to broil. Yeah, it's good stuff, Rocky. Anyway, Donnie, I met Donnie. Donnie had 2 pickup trucks for sale. He was driving one of them, and the other one he had parked. No, the one he had parked had a good body on it, but there had been a transmission issue. Anyway, when I talked to him, he said he wanted $2,000 for one or the other. And I said I'd prefer to buy the one, oh shit, with the good, damn it all anyway. Well, that'll happen sometimes. There you go. I'm going to have to scrape that up and put it on here. So anyway, Donnie, he said that he had these 2 trucks, this salt-of-the-earth man, honest as the day is long. Sal Aver wanted them to me for $2,000 safetied, and the one that had the transmission issue, it was going to come with a rebuilt transmission. I asked him how he could afford to sell me a truck certified with a rebuilt transmission for $2,000. That was the truck I was interested in, but I wondered how he could do it. And he said he could do it because he'd gotten the transmission for next to nothing, that he had a friend who owned the transmission shop, and a customer had brought the transmission in to be rebuilt, but had never come to pick it up. And so he bought it basically for what it cost the transmission shop to rebuild it, which was $500. So he could easily afford to allow me to buy the truck from him for $2,000 safety, plus the truck was in good shape otherwise, so there'd be no issues with, it wouldn't take much to safety it. This is what he told me. Well, I looked at the truck, and it was in fairly good shape, so I figured. I couldn't take it for a drive, so I was limited as far as how I could look at it. But I looked at it, and it had really nice new tires on it, and it seemed to be in good shape. The body was in really good shape. It needed a little body work in the box, but otherwise the body was nice. The body on the one he was driving was falling apart. So yeah, there was that. Anyway, I'm going to just grab up something here. There we go. Hey, Rocky, look at Rocky. Quite the cat. Anyway, oh, there we go. Now we'll look and see what we're seeing here. There we go. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so I'm not sure what you're seeing right now. I hope you're seeing me, such as maybe that's not the best thing, but anyway, this one that fell apart on me here is giving me a hard time. This isn't working out very well at all. But anyway, Donnie, this is what he told me. He said so he could afford to sell it to me. So I looked at it, and, it was in decent shape, and so on like that. It wasn't too bad from what I could gather from it. Like I say, I couldn't take it for a drive because the transmission was out of it at the time. And it was at a garage where I was told they were putting the transmission into it. Anyway, These were the lies I was told. Well, while the truck was having the transmission put into it and being safetied, so I was told that this was happening. What was actually happening is Donnie was transferring parts from the truck that I bought, good parts, to his own truck and putting the worn out parts from his truck that he was driving onto the truck I was buying from him, which of course I didn't know. Now the garage was out in the country, so I wasn't able to get out there to see what was going on because I had no wheels. Well, it ended up that this is what he was doing. He changed the radiator and the tires and everything. And then he tells me the truck isn't safetied. After I paid him for it, he told me the truck was ready to go. I went to the bank and got the money, $2,000. I paid him for it. Then he tells me the truck is not safetied after all, that he never said it was, even though he did. He claimed the transmission had been changed. It hadn't been. They had painted the transmission, but they hadn't changed it. Well, it looked new, but it wasn't when I got the truck. So it still had transmission issues, plus it had to be safetied. So when I went to pick the truck up at the garage, it was a real shit show anyway. But ended up costing me over $5,000 before it was all said and done. And the truck still wasn't roadworthy because the rear axle went out of it after all that. And at that point, I just gave up on it. Lost my shirt, basically. Ended up going into debt over this truck. Well, of course, I was hopping mad. So I started going on a campaign to let everybody know that Donnie Hannaford was a crook. And I got ridiculed a lot. And people said, well, it's your own fault for trusting a crook and so on. But still, there were a few people that wouldn't deal with Donnie, and I think he did end up having a few deals he was working on fall through because of what I did. So he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy with me. Well, at the time, I was still in my house that I eventually lost. But my rental property there, I was still in that. But what had happened was I had to walk to the community mailbox, which was down the road, to get my mail every day. Now, this was in the winter time, and there were big snowbanks along the sides of the road. Like, these snowbanks were towering over my head. They were so big. And the thing about snowbanks is they get hard like concrete. And the closer you get to the snowbank, oftentimes the harder it is to walk because there's a lot of loose, big clumps of snow on the ground and stuff, and it's hard to walk through that. But the snowbanks themselves get hard like concrete after a while. Well, anyway, so it's like walking next to a concrete wall if you walk right up against the snowbank. Plus, there's all kinds of this loose stuff that you'll trip over, big chunks of snow and stuff. So I was walking more towards the road, on the side of the shoulder closest to the road. While I'm walking along there, it was at night, and I didn't want to get close to the snowbanks because the walking would be a lot harder. But I had that feeling, that nagging feeling I needed to get close to the snowbanks. Well, I ignored it at first, but it got stronger and stronger. And finally, I gave into it, and I went over to the side, and I got up against the snowbanks. And as soon as I did that, Donnie Hannaford's truck came past me and came within 6 inches of hitting me. He had swerved onto the shoulder of the road. He was going to run me over. And he came within about 6 inches of running me over. You see, now that was because I listened to that feeling. I didn't want to go over onto the snow, close to the snowbank, because the walking was a lot harder there. And see, if Donnie had run me over where I was standing, where I was walking at that point, he would have had to hit the snowbank. The front end of his truck would have hit the snowbank. There'd be no way to avoid it. And if that had happened, it would have smashed the front end of his truck up, because it would have been like hitting a concrete wall. So there was no way he could run me over as long as I was right up against the snowbank. And that's why that voice in my head told me to do that. It wasn't so much a voice, it was a feeling. It isn't really a voice I hear, it's just a feeling I have, that tells me I need to do something. Funny thing is, when I worked for the auctioneer, I used to get that same feeling about things. Well, it would have been nice if I'd gotten that feeling before I dealt with Donnie, but I didn't. But after I dealt with him, when he tried to run me over, I did get that feeling, and I was able to be saved from being run over for that reason. So it saved my life is what it did. These are quite good. There's Rocky. Look at his tail. Woo. Anyway, what happens with these deals that the auctioneer would get into, he'd go in and he'd buy the contents of an estate, or he'd buy the contents of an estate or a business that was going under or whatever. He'd buy the contents of that, and there's always people though who have keys, access to properties and stuff. And sometimes what people will do is, either family members or employees or the people even who sold you the goods, they'll come in and they'll steal stuff. After they've sold it to you or whatever, they'll come in and they'll steal it back. And that's why we used to try to get what we called the money, which was the good stuff, out on the first day. And one of my jobs was to go in and assess the place and determine, which items were money items, and make sure that stuff went on the truck first. And I was good at that. I'm not a good salesman, but I'm good at knowing what will sell, and I'm good at knowing what's worth money. I'm just not good at selling it, because that's a different skill set. But anyway, I used to find stuff that people had hidden. I was like a bloodhound. I could get in there and I'd find it. If you hid it, I'd find it, because sometimes the people wouldn't be in a position to steal a thing right away, but they wouldn't want us to get it. They want to keep it for themselves. And so my boss would buy the contents of the building, or the buildings, or the property, or whatever. So everything in there belonged to him. But there's people that would want to take stuff back or steal stuff or whatever, One time at a house in Ottawa, I found a galvanized steel wash pail full of change. Now bear in mind, in Canada, our $1 and $2 currency is actually coins now. We don't have any more $1 and $2 bills. It's all coins. So we have what we call a loonie, which is a $1 coin, because it has a picture of a loon on it, which is a kind of a bird. And we have a toonie, as well, which is the $2 coin. We call that a toonie. Anyway, this pail was full of loonies and toonies and quarters, nickels, dimes, quarters, loonies, and toonies. Everything but pennies. I don't think there were any pennies in it, but it was all of her change anyway. Well, that was hidden behind the water heater. Probably what happened was some family member found it in there and didn't want to share with the rest of the family. And so they hid it behind the water heater, and they were going to come back and retrieve it later. Anyway, I found it, and that was our boss's property because he had bought the contents of the place, so everything in there belonged to him. On the way home, our boss's son, who had come with us, started counting the change, and he stopped at $2,000, and he had barely made a dent in the pail. I never was told how much was actually in there. But like I say, $2,000, and you'd barely know he'd taken anything out of the pail. He was taking the money out, counting it, and he was dumping it into another container as he counted it. And what happened is, by $2,000, the other container he was putting it into got full. But like I say, it barely made a noticeable dent in the pail. So that's it anyway. It was a lot of money. Another time we were at a farm property where my boss had bought the contents of the property, of the house and the outbuildings and everything. And he had told me to focus on the house that day, not to worry about the outbuildings, just to focus on the house. But while I was on the property, I noticed a chicken coop, and I had a feeling about the chicken coop. I don't know why. I just had that feeling that I get, So I walked over and I opened the door to the chicken coop. And there was nothing in there except a lawnmower. Now here's the story with the lawnmower. The lawnmower was a lawnmower that was sold by a store called Western Tire. Western Tire ceased to exist in 1972. Now, what made this lawnmower extra special is it was a brand new lawnmower. Somebody had bought it from Western Tire and they'd never used it. It still had all the tags on it, right from the store. It had never been used. And so, anyway, that lawnmower had to be at least from 1972. It had to be from 72 or older. See, somebody connected with the estate, a friend or a family member, had come across that, was aware it was there or whatever, and they hid it in the chicken coop, knowing that we weren't going to get to the outbuildings right away, knowing that we'd be focusing on the house at first. They were planning to come back at night when we were gone and retrieve that lawnmower from the chicken coop. Anyway, I found it in there. My boss took pictures of it, which he sent through the interwebs to his wife. She posted the pictures on the website. And when we came back to the shop that evening from the job, there was a man standing there waiting to buy that lawnmower from my boss. It was literally sold before we even got it back to the shop. It was on the truck, and it was sold. My boss actually gave me shit for looking in the chicken coop, though, because he said he had told me to focus on the house, and I had no business looking at the other buildings when he had told me to focus on the house. So I actually got into some trouble for that. But if I hadn't have looked at the chicken coop, that lawnmower would have been gone, Anyway, because whoever hid it in there would have come back to get it. Anyway, stuff like that used to happen all the time. And I got pretty good at finding these things that people had hidden so they could come and retrieve them later. You know, I got pretty good at it anyway. So yeah, anyway, that's the story. That's what happened. I'm enjoying my breakfast. I'm going to continue to eat it, and we'll see you all later. Bye for now.